Great, thank you so much. So this is going to be recorded. We are going to have some panelists. I wanted to start off here with your summer internships, resources and strategies, and spoiler alert, this is not what you're going to be doing, most likely. Who knows, maybe if you're lucky, you would get to do it. Hanging out on a beach, a boat, nice quiet time, probably not. This is what we're going to be doing today. The things I wanted to go over were starting you with what you need to do to start preparing to apply to internships. Internships basically go open applications from now, and they continue to open and they continue to close. So begin to look at those internships that you are interested in and be sure to mark the dates down when they open, when they close, what you need for them. They may need letters of recommendation, they may need your transcripts, personal statement, resume are pretty much required. So those are things you can begin to start on now, as well as looking at them, what you need to do. So the questions that we have 3 awesome panelists today. I'll be introducing them in a moment. I'm going to go through my information first and then let them take over. These are the questions I asked them to answer. And of course, things may go off in a different area, but I wanted to let you know what we hope to cover, because I know these are going to be questions you'll be interested in as well. What steps did you take to prepare for the summer internships? Where did you look and what resources did you use to find internships? How many internship opportunities did you apply to? Was it in person or virtual? And what advice would you give to someone applying for an internship for next summer? And please put your questions in the chat for now. If we have time at the end, we'll move on to in-person answering or asking those questions. And we can also speak to those as we go along. But if we can answer it in the chat, we'll go ahead and do that. So what we can do at the Career Center, we can help you with your resume. We can help you with your cover letter. We can help you with your statement of purpose or personal statement. And Big Interview is available for interview practice. Everyone can sign up for that. And we also do mock interviews if you want us to help you with that as well. So that's just a beginning. Here's where you can find some of those things. So this is our Career Center landing page. It's career.berkeley.edu. Hopefully most of you know that. On our career page, one of the things you can see is this 24/7 resources. It's actually up here. It's a drop-down menu also. So you can drop that menu down. Here's some things that you can see. We have a really extensive a YouTube channel with all kinds of workshops, from pre-med to how to write a cover letter, to resume help, to informational interviews, all kinds of interesting things. Our career readiness workbook has all kinds of help also, sample resumes, cover letters, etc. So use what we have here. Here's a link down here that you can also use to find it as well. Handshake, you all know about Handshake, I hope. If you don't, get familiar with Handshake, because not only is it a way for you to put your resume out there, it's also a way for you to search for summer internships. And you will see that I just put in the search words summer internship into Handshake. It came up with 32 pages. So there are things to do out there. Of course, you know, and none of them you can filter it to make it personal to what you're looking for. But I just thought that was interesting that when I just put in one search, couple search words, summer internships, a lot came up. There's also events, there's ways to check other things out. It's very useful once you get to know it. So here's some internship search methods. So these are more for students who possibly are not pre-med, but also pre-med. So let's just say you can't find a pre-med related. Any sort of experience is going to be a great foundation for customer service skills, for expanding your own ability to do different things. So don't feel limited to just pre-med, pre-health. Aim for that if you are a pre-med, pre-health, but there's also many other social helping type internships that are possible too. So on campus, department listservs, MCB, psychology, check those out because they often have internships within their departments. Okay, there you go. So thank you for that. I'm sorry I didn't mention that ahead of time about transcription. Online, of course, looking at the online sites, you can create opportunities yourself. You can't find something, figure out what you want to do. Doing some sort of freelance thing is sort of like creating it, whether you want to start up a service to people around you. Staffing agencies, networking are all good for summer job looking, for deciding what you want to do. Here are some online services. So ZipRecruiter, LocalWise, Indeed, AngelList, LinkedIn, and I have a link here with specific job listing sites that is on our Career Center site. So they have them specifically for pre-med, pre-health, but other things as well. And Work for Good is one that has also good places for social work type things as well, working, finding jobs where you can help others. Create opportunities. If you can't find one, create it. Berkeley students are amazing in being able to do that. So prepare a proposal for someone or a job or a company or a professor. Don't be afraid to approach them with your proposal. Make sure, maybe you want to have somebody look it over. Think about what your project, what it might be, what the employer needs. Include a clear and concise plan of what you want to do and how the employer will benefit from it. And be prepared for the company to not be interested in what you have to offer, but be proud of yourself for going through with that. This link that I put on here, Develop Internship, is something that has a lot more detail if that's something you thought you might want to do. Staffing and temp agencies, it's a possibility to use those for temporary work, a summer job, a chance to test the waters in some sort of work that you might be interested in, and you'd also be gaining an income. And again, do your research, check out the reviews. What companies do you like to work? What kind of assignments would you like to do? Ask questions. Be selective if you have the choice. Choose the agency that's right for you. Berkeley Career Connect Network is an online platform, and what it is it has alums there. So you can go in there, you can actually search for professions and find people who are doing things that you might be interested in. A proposal to them might be an option, or checking in with them to see what's in their network can also be something that you would do with that. It's very easy to get onto the network and to see all of the different jobs and what people are doing. So that's another one way that you could also utilize what we have on our platform to find people who are doing what you want and possibly find something, almost like cold emailing professors for research. So you can also connect on LinkedIn. If you can see there's over 300,000 alumni on LinkedIn. Surely somebody might be doing something that you're interested in. That's another way to connect with people, and another reason to have your LinkedIn profile updated and ready to go. Join groups, interested groups. So I can read there. So, find groups that you're interested in and join them if you can. They are always helpful, and there's always interesting things that other groups may be doing that will come into your feed. Informational interviews. If you know informational interviews, they are an opportunity to have a short conversation with someone about what they're doing. We do have a link about informational interviews, and I highly encourage you all to check that out and see what that means. It's a great way to connect with someone in a short amount of time. Most people don't have an hour to sit and talk with you, but they'll have 10 or 15 minutes. So if you come up with concise questions, you'll be able to find answers and hopefully make a connection. And if you do feel like you connected with that person, you can then follow up and check in with them, not just for things that you want, but to ask questions or as a mentor. So here's our intern search checklist, internship search checklist. So yes, polish your resume and cover letter up to date. Always a difficult, hard barrier to get over, but do it because you always want a good resume ready to go. Create and update your LinkedIn profile and your Handshake profile. There are oftentimes people looking on Handshake for complete profiles and may connect with you. You have an algorithm that connects with what they're interested in looking for. Practice your interviewing skills. Of course, the hardest thing about interviews is you think you know the answers, but when you try to speak them and articulate them, sometimes they come out in a jumble. So always good to practice those basic things. And Big Interview is a fantastic way to do that. So identify and connect with any references you may have. That may mean professors, that may mean supervisors from jobs or experiences that you've had. And do perform informational interviews as a practice, maybe with somebody that you don't know well. It's a great way to be able to connect with people in general. It's just having those questions on the tip of your tongue when you meet someone new. So this is the link. I am sharing with you up here this link, and I'll also put this in the chat. These are the sort of summer internship lists that I've curated of things. Some of them you'll find are ones where you have to pay to do if you want. Some are ones that may pay you, some may be free, some are specific to certain groups, underserved, underrepresented, dental, could be others as well. But it's worth kind of looking through and seeing if you can find the things that you're interested in. I put the link to the Handshake internships on there as well. So you can look through the 32 pages on Handshake and see what appeals to as well. So this is what you'll actually be doing in the summer at an internship: gaining skills, learning, making your goals and figuring out what you want, gaining experience, and developing your own ideas and yourself. So just real quick, sorry, are there any questions? Anybody have any questions for me or that have been answered in the chat already? All right. So what I would like to do now is introduce our three panelists and have them talk about the questions that I put up here originally. So I am going to stop sharing my screen and let our panelists speak. And I'd like to introduce Nicole and Mons and Christian. Would you guys take it over and introduce yourselves, please?
Hi, I can go ahead and get started. So my name is Nicole. I'm a fourth year and I'm a public health major. So this summer I did a 7-week clinical internship at the University of Washington's Autism Center's summer camp. And my internship title was basically clinical research intern. And so what I did for the internship was basically engage in sessions with kids age 5 to 12 who might have autism or ADHD, and basically help them with activities throughout their day while taking in data. And in the internship, I was able to work with different psychologists or other experts on any topics that were related to ASD or ADHD, just kind of analyzing their behavior and being able to modify any responses so that throughout the 7 weeks, we can see how data might improve with certain treatments. So that's me.
Hi, I'm Monse. I am a third year majoring in anthropology, and I interned at Kaiser. So my title was Division of Research Intern, and I was working with a team doing the Upstart research, and it was basically on diabetic patients or pre-diabetic patients, and it focused on pairing pre-diabetic patients with patients who already had diabetes but were able to control it. And it was just focusing on like ways to prevent. So it was like a preventative strategy. So to prevent pre-diabetic patients from getting diabetes. And I basically coded interviews. So I had the interviews already, and I coded them for the team who would then analyze them. So that was my job. And I did that for 8 weeks. And I had a co-intern, so I had someone else working with me. Yeah.
Yeah, hello everyone. Thank you so much for inviting me here. My name is Christian. I'm a fourth year studying data science and public health, and I interned at Zuckerberg San Francisco General Hospital and Trauma Center's Data Quality Center as a data analyst. I give me one second. So what I did quite a few things in the internship. Not only was I a data analyst, I created a workplace violence dashboard that helped supported the behavioral emergency response teams, workflow, and best protected medical doctors when interacting with psychiatric patients. I also shadowed and taught physicians and nurses coding because they wanted to learn. I was like really down to show them. And I also was a committee member for vaccine compliance around the hospital's general region in the mission and within the hospital as well.
Thank you, Christian. Really appreciate Nicole, Christian, and Monse providing that information. Do you want to go on to the next questions? What steps did you take to prepare for the summer internship? Christian, why don't you start first?
Yeah, sure. So Irma is in the chat. So they really supported me. I did a lot of interviews. I had multiple resumes ready. Well, before the interviews, I had multiple resumes prepared to best display what I wanted to show my abilities were. So I had 3 different versions of them, and I just kind of pick and choose which types of bullet points and experiences I wanted to resemble when I wanted to go into this position. So I made sure those were all polished, and I got to decide which one shows my best well-roundedness, my different experiences, and a lot of different perspectives that I can bring into the table that other candidates may also bring, but my specific experiences kind of demonstrated a lot more that things that I am very passionate about. So that was kind of like the first step for me. And then once I got into the interview stage, I set some mock interviews with Irma. So we had about 4 before my main interview date. And so those were the main things that I really wanted to focus on because I felt very strongly about my writing abilities. But interviews, there's a lot of things that we may forget to teach about or discuss about ourselves because sometimes it becomes very natural to talk about ourselves. And so you just forget about the experiences that you had. So giving yourself enough time to reflect on all the experiences that you have and be able to concisely discuss them is something that I really wanted to nail down in these mock interviews. So that's a little bit of the stuff that I took to prepare for the summer internships. And then once I got accepted, it was brushing up on my coding, whatever this job description entails, and making sure I was ready to ask the appropriate questions with already having done the background research. So that's just a little bit of the steps I took.
Great, thank you. That interviewing part is always hard, isn't it? Getting those sort of narratives down. Great, thank you so much. Nicole, would you like to go next? The steps you took to prepare.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so for me, kind of similar to what Christian said, like kind of gearing my resume towards what I knew what I wanted to do this summer. So for me, like I knew I wanted to do something clinical and something in research. So for me, that's kind of how I adopted my resume to kind of fit that. If I had like previous experience with research in the past, I kind of made sure that that was where my resume is at, involving any necessary like coursework, just kind of listing that just to make sure that it would fit with the program that I was applying to. And then another thing I did to prepare was, at least for like looking into internships, if things like letter of recommendations were needed, kind of looking into that in advance, kind of making like a cover letter for anyone that I might be asking a letter of rec from, and basically compiling materials so that, you know, when the time came like a few weeks in advance to send those letters of rec, like I would have everything available, and I was able to just give that to my employers to have them write me a letter of rec for the program. And that's like pretty much what I did to prepare for it, just kind of really specifying that I was interested specifically in clinical research and also like working one-on-one with patients.
Great, thank you so much. Monse, would you like to go ahead with that? What step did you prepare? How did you prepare for it?
Yeah, so I think like similar to what Christian and Nicole already said, it was just like fixing my resume, so my first step was like fixing my resume to become like part of the whole program. And then after that, we had like a second round of interviews for different departments. And then that was like another kind of fixing my resume and making a cover letter. So to make myself stand out from the rest of the group. And also we received like documents. Oh, give me a second. Sorry. But yeah, just like editing my my resume. And then after that, we received emails from like the supervisors, and we had to like go over data. So they gave us like mock data, you can say, and we had to like analyze it in front of them, or like, so just preparing for that also. That was like part of the interview. So yeah, that was like preparing for that was a different experience for me, because I don't have much experience with like applying for internships or like interviewing. And yeah, that was just like a new experience, and that was something that I had to do.
Good. Thank you. Thank you so much. So, Monse, let's start with you. How did you decide? Where did you look, and how did you find the resources or the internships, resources for looking for internships? What was your process for that?
Yeah, I received, so I like get emails from like previous teachers or counselors who I've talked to, and they know like my goals or what I want to do, and they've sent me like, oh, I found this cool internship that you might be interested in. So I look at those, and I also look at I follow like a lot of pages on Instagram, like of internship opportunities, or like sometimes scholarships also post different internship opportunities. So that's another way that I've found different opportunities.
Good. All right. Nicole, would you like to share about how you looked for yours and what resources you used to find it?
Yeah, so kind of took a different approach. I did use Google quite a bit. So for me, like when I was searching for internships, I started around like December to search for a summer internship, and just like keeping track of due dates of everything, because I feel like every internship is different in that way. So for me, like it helped to search by narrowing down like where I was going to be that summer. So I was going to be in Seattle that summer. So specifically like searching for internships that were specific to the area. So looking into any hospitals, or since the University of Washington was right there, kind of looking into that to see if they had any internships available. And then, yeah, just using keywords like clinical research or like anything medical related kind of helped me narrow down my search and apply to internships that fit my specific interests. But it was also helpful like looking on LinkedIn, because a lot of stuff does pop up on there that are specific to summer internships. That's what I did.
That's great. I love to hear the different ways. I mean, that's one of the things I wanted to hear is how different people look for different things. Christian, would you like to share about how you found your how you looked and found a internship?
Yeah, for sure. So I think mine really started when I got into the public health major and started talking to a lot of the advisors, even before I applied. So it was just kind of me talking about my passions, what I really am interested in, and everything like that, and allowing them to get to know me a little bit more and creating that really strong relationship and network. Because once they know a lot about the things that I'm really passionate about in public health, I would then get like emails later on, be like, oh, hey, I thought about you when I saw this internship opportunity, and I'd like to send it your way. Some of the counselors that I've talked to at the Career Center have also done that for me as well. Shout out to Irma. And so it's kind of like that opportunity to be able to share about your experiences and your background with others. And then they'll kind of have like a foresight of like other opportunities and keep you in mind. And then they send you forward. Another thing, kind of what Monse was saying about was others referring you or like other people who have been a part of internships before. So HCC is a huge one that happens nationally. And I know a lot of students who are in public health who have gone through that internship before. And so once they post it on our Slack channel or something like that, or they text me about it, that's a really great opportunity because now you have someone to ask questions to. And so those opportunities are really like really special because there's a source that you can kind of go talk to get all your questions answered. So definitely referrals, other people who I've talked to who know about me and my interest have been the main way I've been able to get some internships and get follow-up on like the questions I have about them.
I think that's really great. And I think that's so important because if you do express what you're interested in, then people do perk up and they want to connect you. And that's another reason for checking with alumni, checking with through career health, the alumni career network, also LinkedIn. Many different ways you can find internships besides what we have brought here. For those of you who don't know, HCC is Health Career Connections. You may have already said that, but I just want to make sure students know. So our next question is, how many internship opportunities did you apply to? Go ahead, Christian, going back.
Yeah, I applied to a couple. I believe like 5 to 7 was my range, just because, it takes a lot of work to change cover letters, applying to things. That does take a lot of time. So being able to allot yourself enough time to like really give everything you have into one application. So 5 to 7 was kind of like the max I went about. But also that was kind of split in between 2 different pathways. So one was more community health oriented and the other ones were more data science or like technical. So that was kind of like my setting a wide net and to be able to get something back. And then once I got somewhere or anything like that, it became dependent on how many interviews I had and everything like that, which takes a lot more time afterwards. So giving yourself enough time not to only apply, but also to do all the other extracurricular things that you have to do for landing a position. So yeah, I think I did like around 5 or 7.
All right, and it's true. Once you have all those materials together, it's easier to start to apply to other positions. You have to do some finessing of maybe a cover letter or statement or whatever, but it's really helpful once you get your resume, cover letter template, your reference letters if you need them. All of those really help to have prepared so that you can go ahead and begin to apply to other internships. Nicole, did you want to talk about how many you applied to?
Yeah, so I actually only applied to 2, which I don't recommend. I think applying to as many as possible would be probably better. But for me, those were like the 2 opportunities, like the Seattle Children's Hospital, and then the one that I ended up going with at the University of Washington were the 2 that I was most interested in. And kind of looking back, maybe it would have been a better idea to like apply to more, but I think at the time, just because like it was a new area for me and I didn't have a car, I just wanted to stick within like a close range of like what I was able to actually go to. So I only did 2.
It worked. Yeah. Monse, you want to go ahead?
Yes, I also I applied to 3. And like similar to what Nicole was saying, I applied to, I believe it was like the Kaiser internship I applied to first, and they told me like I received an acceptance letter, you can say, like quite early, and that's why like I had been wanting to do that internship for like a couple years now. So that's why I was like, I decided to not apply to anymore. But I think it is very important and useful to apply to as many as you can, because you do open up your opportunities and new experiences. Yeah.
Right. Thank you. Thank you. So I don't know that I heard when you guys were describing what you did, was it in person or virtual? You kind of want to talk about how that COVID affected your ability to do your internship and what that was like during that period? Monse, why don't you go?
Yeah, my internship was virtual, but I do know that other interns from like that same group were in person. Um, but I feel like my internship or like my job was since it was mostly like computer work, like it wasn't like I didn't miss out on much. I also had the opportunity to like go to the location or like the building with all like the whole team, and we did meet a few times. So I feel like that was also like a good experience. Yeah, so my internship was virtual.
Good. All right. And go on to Nicole again.
Yeah, so my internship luckily was in person, which was really great. I think COVID did make it a little harder to apply because like a lot of internships were either remote or they weren't offered that summer just because of COVID. So that's why when I was like looking for one, like I really wanted one that was in person. And also I feel like in terms of clinical work, like it's really important to be able to interact with the patients like one-on-one and like be able to talk to them and interact with them for the 7 weeks of my internship. So yeah, like it was in person, but it was also a lot of like COVID safety protocols that we had to observe during the internship. So like I said, it was like 7 weeks, and the whole time like everyone's masked. The whole program was outdoors. And for me, like my age group was kids who were like 5 to 6 years old, and they're not super great about their masks. So that was like another thing that we were tracking on data, just like, you know, how often that we need to remind them to just like keep their masks on, wanting to observe like the 6 feet distance protocol, which was a little bit hard because, you know, they like to play with each other and everything. But yeah, I think it was really valuable to have an in-person internship for the summer and just be able to like interact with the kids and kind of be able to get to know them one-on-one, that I think wouldn't have been as much fun if it was virtual. And a lot of the activities that we ended up doing for the sessions just wouldn't be the same if it was virtual or online. But in terms of like the applying and the interview process, all of that was online up until the actual program. And I think the first 2 weeks of the program, we had some remote training, but also some in-person training too, before we started the actual program with the kids. But yeah, like I do remote research like during the school year, and it's just, you know, on my laptop looking at spreadsheets. So it was really nice this summer to just be able to get out and like be able to interact. Yeah.
It is nice, isn't it? Yeah. Christian.
Yeah, I had a hybrid model. So the way kind of like HCC works, part of it is virtual. And those are more on like the workshop side. Grad students come talk to us, medical students come talk to us, all those different things were held virtually because they also have an East Coast location that they offer as well. So we kind of had like a bundle of students who were there. And then virtually was my on-site location at the hospital. That was really, really cool just because I love the flexibility, because sometimes on Mondays I didn't want to go all the way to SF like early in the mornings at 8 a.m. So I would just text my boss saying, oh, hey, I think I'm going to go virtual today. But then when I had to be on site and be able to talk to nurses, huddle sessions, all those other things, I had to go in person. So for the majority of it, it was in person. Even though my job was more on the data science side on the back end, a lot of my job was a lot about talking or learning about the workflow of the hospital and best maximizing that. And just learning about a lot of different people how to be engaged with, like the BERT team, the behavioral emergency response team, a bunch of nurses who were talking about me and like having to help me code what the workflow looks like on the floor. And so that was a relationship I had to establish with them and create trust. I think my internship went from June 21st, 20th, all the way to September. So it went into my school year, which I decided that I wanted to do just because I really wanted to finish the project that I wanted to work on. But with that remote hybrid model, it allowed me to do so. So not only was I able to be a part of the community and mission and the hospital itself, but I also had that ability to just be able to go remote sometimes. But yeah, that was my experience at the hospital.
Great. So Christian, I'm going to ask you to start again on this question. Reflecting on your experience, what advice would you give to any of our attendees who are applying for an internship for next summer?
Yeah, so I think something that really kind of stood out to me was the dozens of applications that they probably have to see and go through, and the dozens of interviews that they have to go through in the same week. So I think something that I really wanted to give a lot of time to was reflecting on my experiences that I've had and how I wanted to discuss a lot of the challenges, not only the successes when I was discussing those experiences, because it allows them a little bit of a view of like how it actually was like being in that position, being in that leadership role, and be able to discuss that I am not a perfect person. And so that's completely okay. And there's a lot of learning and growth that can be done. And because you're so motivated and passionate to be able to have that growth, there is a great way to communicate that, and they will able to resonate with that and connect with you. So I would definitely just say, give yourself that grace and that empowerment of being able to reflect on your experiences and not fall into the imposter syndrome that a lot of us kind of face in this university. So be able to give yourself that credit, because there is a lot of incredible things that you've been a part of that you can discuss, and whether or not they've seen it before doesn't matter. It's really all about how you felt about it and how you grew as a person, as a student, as a researcher, whatever your position was. I think that was the biggest thing that kind of changed my perspective on how I went on the applications and discussing about my discussing my experiences at my interviews, because I actually had the ability to talk to people, what were my strengths, my weaknesses, and actually be able to have that good feedback and communication with when applying and when interviewing. So yeah, definitely discuss to your coworkers if you had any, what were your strengths and weaknesses, things that they would like to highlight about you. They probably have a better insight, because we're kind of our hardest critics a lot of the time. So having that other person be able to have that really good discussion and engage with you in those reflection periods would be really nice.
Great, thank you so much. And that's so true. Be your authentic self and do a lot of reflection on who you are and what you're bringing to this position. So thank you, Christian. Nicole, let's go backwards again. So reflecting on what your experiences were when you did your internship, what advice would you give to somebody applying for this upcoming summer?
Yeah, so I think definitely like what Christian said about like imposter syndrome, like I feel like that's definitely a big one. So like for me, since this was a more behavioral side of medicine that I haven't experienced before, I wasn't sure like if I was qualified to even like apply to the internship. But I think definitely like advice I would give for those of you who are applying for summer internship is to start early, and also don't let like a lack of experience stop you from applying to certain opportunities. Because for me, like both of the research opportunities that I've experienced, I didn't have any prior experience with that. It was just like during the interview, making sure that I was able to show that I'm super open to learning about, how to properly, run certain labs, or also like how to interact with kids who might have ASD, just like being able to show them that I'm open to learning, and that, it's not, I won't be stopped just because I haven't had previous experience before, and that I think it's important to not let yourself like be put down just because you think, oh, like I don't have this much experience in this field, or maybe none at all. And that at the end of the day, like it's totally fine. Like a lot of internships I feel like are open definitely to like having different students. Like for me in my internship this summer, like a lot of students were pre-med, but there was also like a few out there who were like, English majors or like history majors. Like it wasn't specific to just, pre-med. It's just anyone who was interested in that opportunity and wanted to learn more about working in a clinical setting, and specifically like working with kids who do have ASD or ADHD, and kind of being able to learn from that. But yeah, like I think that was the main thing, like just making sure that, just because you may not have any experience, because I know I didn't, like you're still able to apply.
That's a really good point. Thank you, Nicole. Monse.
Yeah, I would say reflecting on my internship experience this past summer, I would say my advice is to not get discouraged because this internship that I was able to do this past summer, I had previously gotten rejected for in the past. So I applied again. So I feel like that was like a very like important thing for me. It was like, just because I didn't get accepted the first time doesn't mean I can like try again. So I feel like that's an important learning point, to just keep trying, and like that shows your resilience to them. Because I think the program coordinator was the same person, so they will like remember you. Another important advice would be to like kind of like what Nicole was saying. It's like my advice would be to apply to as many different internships, like a different range, something that you may not have experience in, but you are interested, or maybe something that you're not interested either, but like it's just like a new experience. So you will learn something from it. You may end up liking it. And like Nicole said, even if you don't have experience, I don't think they will, like Nicole's experience, she didn't have experience, but she was able to gain some. And yeah, I would say like just apply to a different range of internships and don't get discouraged.
And it's a good point. I think that you were able to do that and felt like you had a better application the second time around. Maybe you were more experienced. And I think that's something that comes up as maybe a question. I don't see it in the chat, but how much do grades affect your ability, you feel, to your transcripts, maybe in terms of the overall package that you presented? Was that an important part? So between grades, your personal statement of motivation for wanting to do that, your letters of recommendation, what do you feel like was something that personally helped you?
I can go first. I would say grades did not determine like my position in the internship. I feel like it was more of enthusiasm to like be there. Because like I said, it was the second time I applied. So I feel like they like really like got the idea, like, oh, like she really wants to be a part of this internship. Yeah, and like I want to be in like the medical field. So so I feel like that was more of a determining factor for me, like the enthusiasm, and then like you said, like your cover letter, how you express yourself through the cover letter was more of a factor than grades in my experience.
Enthusiasm and persistence will get you a long way. Yeah. So Nicole, how about you? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, so same as what Monte said, they did not ask for like a transcript or anything. So I think definitely like grades didn't matter in my case. I think the more important parts were the personal statements that they were asking for, asking about like any opportunities that you had in the past that might have related to your experience. So for me, like, because it was like a internship working with kids who had this disorder, like for me, even though I didn't have that much experience in that field, I remember like in my interview talking about how I have like two younger sisters, and like one of my parents like works abroad. So basically a lot of my time at home was like working with them and like helping with them with like homework and everything. And I feel like even though it wasn't like, a clinical research experience or anything, like it's still, I was able to relate it to something that I did in the past and kind of be able to apply it to the internship. So I think definitely like writing your personal statements and like tying in any personal experience that you might have with something that could relate to the internship is definitely important. And also like in the interview, just like being able to like look over your application beforehand and like being able to kind of repeat like what you said. And also, if they have any other questions about things that you've done in the past, like being able to relate that. But yeah, like definitely like grades were never an issue or anything. And like for me, like definitely discouraged by like all the classes at Berkeley that are like really hard and everything. So I was like a little worried, definitely feeling like in the imposter syndrome because classes here are just crazy. But yeah, like I did try not to like let it discourage me from applying to internships, and none of them ever asked for like transcripts or GPA or anything like that. So I don't think it's like a big factor, at least for the one that I applied to.
That's great. That's great to know. How about you, Christian?
Yeah, I was never asked for my GPA. I didn't even put it on my resume either. So it was never kind of like asked that they had for me. I think a lot of what separates uh being hired or getting accepted is probably the interview, because everyone has like a different writing styles, different application styles, all those different things, and have different strengths in those. But once you get into the interview portion, they're starting to see who their future coworker is going to look like. I shared a office with the boss that I worked under and everything like that. So are they willing to put up with me for 9 to 5, 5 days a week? That's kind of like the huge thing that like kind of separates that a lot. And I don't know if a lot of people see that, because interviews is like your time to be able to give that application, that cover letter, a little bit more personality, a little bit more of your work ethic, and the questions they ask are very, very compelling, and you have to critically think about them. A lot of them are not straightforward. So at least in my experience, they were not straightforward. So there's a lot of learning that they get to do about you and like what you're able to offer, and you bringing to light a lot of the experience that you had in those 3 bullet points on your resume, 4 bullet points, and actually be able to like personalize them and be able to discuss on those experiences is definitely the difference that kind of gets you into the door.
Great. Those are all great points. Are there any other questions out there? Emma, do you have any questions?
There was a question about letters of recommendation. Should you have somebody write it that knows you well, or somebody that is in a field that is related to the internship? And my answer is someone that knows you well. So whether it's a GSI or a professor or even a staff person that may know you well for a job, that's perfectly fine. I mean, you have to follow the directions of the internship. The other question, or the other plug, was that I just want to let everybody know again that our peer advisors are here Monday through Friday to review resumes and cover letters from 12 to 4. You can pop in and drop in at the Career Center Monday through Thursday, and then Friday it's virtual through the live reception on our website.
They're great. That's one of their top training, their skills. So definitely utilize them. And then if you want to come to us for a final check over, we were always happy to do that as well. Any other questions out there in the audience?
There's one for Christian. Could you please give more details about your day-to-day experience?
Yeah, okay, so within the hospital itself, I kind of just like logged in, and every Tuesdays we had our team meetings with the rest of the data analysts and the team. And we were like part data science team, data quality team, and performance improvement. So performance improvement team really helped out a lot of the workflow, get a lot of the special patients that they had come up on their radar in the report or anything like that, and be able to follow up with physicians. Day to day, I think a lot of it was working on my specific project, because they wanted to use me, my perspectives, my new insights as someone who's not ever been in the hospital before, learning about the hospital, getting all those new information being fed into me. And from the experiences that I've had in Berkeley as a researcher, data science counselor, all those other things, I was able to kind of like see a little bit past through what they had. They said they had like jaded vision. And so day to day, I was just progressively working on my project, was a part of different committees every Wednesday. So the vaccine compliance committee, they invited me because they just wanted to see how outreach can look like in a culturally empathetic way that kind of does not blame people who decided to not have the vaccine. And so my counseling skills helped out in there, and they loved a lot of what I was able to bring in there. Every Thursdays, we had a little bit of like a more of a slighter shift because I supported another intern on the PI team, and they needed a little bit of help with Excel and all those other platforms I was really used to. And so it was just kind of on a rotation every single week. And then every month we had something like the Joint Commission come in, who evaluate like the credibility of the hospital and all those things. And I was got to be a part of those as well. Got invited to multiple different committees. So I think day to day it was kind of the same, but there's just a different like tweak every other week. And I was able to ask my boss a lot of the times, oh, hey, I would love to shadow a physician. Is that possible? I've never been in a hospital before, never had an urge to be the clinical side or anything like that, but I would love to see it, and it would help my coding too. So I got to shadow physicians every other week. I got to go to nursing huddles that they have every morning, just to see what patients they're going to go through and see every day. And I even got to go on rounds. So that was really, really cool. But yeah, I think just having an open mind and being curious as to like where you're at and not just like the job you're doing specifically, but also that just being able to see like what does this organization do as a whole. Being a safety net hospital is super, super unique because it kind of covers a lot of the uninsured in that area. A lot of people on Medicaid. So that's just a really, really interesting experience to have. And just being on the data science side just didn't stop me there. I was just able to be a part of the whole community as a whole. And so my week to week kind of changed every day, but definitely advocating for yourself, being like, I would love to hear this, seeing that. And my bosses were super on it. And they're like, yes, of course, we're going to set you up with this person. You can meet with that person, whatever helps me with my project progression, but also just like my experiences as in general. I'm first gen, never seen any doctors that look like me until that experience. So that was super, super amazing, and I'm super, super fortunate to have that experience. And now I want to be a nurse, so it kind of feeds back into that of like, oh wow, this is really, really cool, very passionate about it. And so yeah, definitely be able to have the communication that I want to learn more, not just this project itself, but also this project, and just be able to get that experience as being in a hospital. So yeah, that's how it was for me.
Great. That was fantastic. There were so many great points in there. I think especially, finding your interest and asking people if you can do other things that interest you as well. Even if they say no, I mean, it's worth asking because that does provide that. I want to be aware of time. Were there any more questions, Emma?
No, there aren't.
Okay, maybe we can end the recording. I just want to thank you all first. Thank you so much for participating on our